Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yuri Deming with Inside the Outdoors, the environmental education program administered by the Orange County Department of Education. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is the third segment of our Backyard Mission series. Now, these backyard missions were developed so you and your families can get outside and explore some of the natural phenomena that you see all around you. We were able to learn about birds. We were able to learn about some of the stars that we see above the city of Anaheim. And today, we're going to learn about some nightlife. So start thinking about what types of animals do you think might come out at night? Well, we go to sleep. Even in the city of Anaheim, you might get a chance to hear some animals that are nocturnal. As we move forward, we are also going to have a guest, and they will share their career and how it ties into either working with animals, working outdoors, and all the things that we're talking about in our backyard missions. So thank you again for joining us. And I want to make sure that as we move forward, you are using your chat to ask any questions. We have Mrs. Brown from your district that is looking at the chat, and she's going to go ahead and relay to us any questions that you might have that you're curious about. You will get a chance to meet some animal friends today, but before we do that, we're going to go ahead and meet our guest today. And our guest today is Nicole Bankston. She is from OC Parks. She is a park ranger in Orange County. And I've had the pleasure of knowing Nicole for years. So it was very nice of her to join us today. So Nicole, if you'd like to say hello to all of our friends that are watching from Anaheim Elementary School District.
Hello, I'm Nicole. I'm a park ranger with Orange County Parks. I'm happy to be here today with you.
Perfect. Thank you, Nicole. Now, I have a few questions that we want to talk to you about, specifically about your career, how you got to the position that you're in, and some of the things that maybe got you to where you are, whether it was in school, some of the goals you accomplished along the way. So first question, and I've known you for a few years, and I really love what you do. But what made you choose your career?
Well, I'd have to say that the reason I chose to be a park ranger was because I love to be outside, and I spent a lot of my own personal time taking walks or going on hikes or just going to a park and being outdoors with my family. So it was really something that, why not do something that you love for your career? So it took a while for me to decide what I wanted to do. But once I figured out this was something I could do in Orange County and be close to home, it was just, I knew it was the best choice for me.
So Nicole, it's safe to say that you enjoy your job and you enjoy your career?
Yes, definitely. I do love my job, and I feel very fortunate to be able to have my job because there aren't a lot of park rangers in Orange County. So I feel very lucky to be here.
And I like the fact that you're mentioning rangers in Orange County, because that's something that maybe a lot of people are not aware of, that there are park rangers in our own county. So can you do us a favor and maybe describe what a typical day looks like for a park ranger in your position?
Sure, yeah. So as a park ranger with Orange County Parks in the County of Orange, we manage many different types of park facilities, and we have regional type parks like Irvine Regional Park or Carbon Canyon Regional Park, Mile Square Regional Park. We also manage a number of wilderness facilities, such as I work at Riley Wilderness Park in Coto de Caza, and we also have camping facilities like Casper's Wilderness Park or O'Neill, and we also have historic sites and beaches. So as a park ranger with the County of Orange, we manage so many different types of facilities. So my job is very different than another park ranger working at Irvine Regional Park. But because we work at so many different types of facilities, we are called generalist park rangers. So we do a lot of different things, but a lot of just to try to describe what I do is difficult, but quickly, one of the things that I do when I first get into work is, doesn't matter what facility I'm at, I need to make sure that the park is safe and that there's not a tree that fell down overnight. So the first thing that I do on when I first get into work is do a park patrol. So I make sure that the park is safe for the visitors before they arrive, make sure it's clean, and we do a lot of administrative type things at our job or for our job. I am a supervisor of our maintenance staff, so I coordinate projects, and I'm a peace officer and a first responder. So if somebody is not having a good day, whether they're not making the right choices that day, or they maybe need some help making a better choice, then I'll step in and I'll talk to them about that. So, I mean, I hope that's answers your question, but I mean, my job is different every day, and the park really dictates what I'm going to be doing that day.
Thank you for describing that. No, I totally understand that it can look different every day depending on the park that you're at, the site that you're a ranger at. Can you let us know what your favorite part of a typical day might be, wherever you might be as a park ranger in Orange County?
Yeah, so I love talking to people. And I mean, right now it's hard for me to really have fun conversations with people just because we're limiting in-person conversations with people. And a lot of our park facilities have nature centers. And when those do reopen, I look forward to being able to having people come in and take a look at some of the animal taxidermy, some of the stuffed animals that we have in our park. And I really love just talking to people and seeing what I can do. Like, what is it that they enjoy about their time at their park? So I always like to ask questions about, did you see any fun animals, or did you have a nice walk? And so I just love talking to people at the park. So I'll just talk forever.
That's awesome. No, that sounds like a really fun part of the job, just engaging with people that like to be outdoors, hiking on trails. And I know when I visit parks, if I see a park ranger, definitely that's a conversation that I want to have, obviously when it's safe to be outdoors and close to people. Can you let us know a little bit about maybe your school path, and does your career require a high school diploma, community college, technical college, or is it a 4-year college degree that you might need? What type of schooling do you need to get to be a park ranger?
So specifically for the County of Orange, we don't require a 4-year degree to be a park ranger. And our position in Orange County is very different than like federal or state parks. So I'm not sure what they require, but for us specifically, we don't require a degree, but it's always good to have a degree under your belt because it's a very competitive position, meaning a lot of people want to have this job and there aren't very many. So I have my degree in history. And you wouldn't think that history would be relevant to being a park ranger, but because we manage historic sites, and the first park I worked at was Irvine Regional Park, and there's a ton of history at Irvine Regional Park just because it's the oldest regional park in the state of California. But but a lot of my coworkers, they have degrees in journalism or English or recreation, and so the best part about our job and being generalists is you can, whatever you're interested in, like just follow that. And I spent a lot of time, once I realized I wanted to be a park ranger, volunteering my time. And I volunteered as a park ranger in San Bernardino National Forest. And I tried to volunteer in local parks around my neighborhood. So whatever you can do to make yourself stand out in a position where you may, there may be a lot of other people interested in that position, is the best you can do. But for us, it's just, we're lucky that we can do what we love and not have a specific requirement, because I get to work with so many people with different backgrounds.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I love the fact that you mentioned volunteering, because I think that's something that people might forget. If there's a career that you're interested in, a job that you're interested in, volunteering, might get you that experience to see if that's something you want to pursue. Let me ask you something. So talking about school, if I knew that I wanted to be a park ranger and I was either in high school or thinking college, are there specific classes that I could take that might benefit me in getting that job or that career path?
Yeah, for us, because we are generalists, a lot of people will kind of focus on maybe like the sciences, like botany or forestry, or if you're looking toward like more the law enforcement side of our position, maybe like a criminal justice type of a background would be good. But because we're working outdoors, like any like environmental science or really, for it, just anything you want to do. Anything involving animals would be good because we do interact with a lot of animals at our facilities too.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing that. And speaking to you, can you share with the students that are watching us now, the families, what were your favorite classes when you were in school?
Well, I of course love my history classes, but I really did enjoy like the science type classes for me too. And I like to do crafty type things, so I always loved the arts. But when I was in college, my favorite class when I was getting my bachelor's degree was my environmental history class, because it blended two things that I loved, and it was just it took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to do, and it took me a long time to figure out school. And it's okay if it takes a long time to figure out school, but once I figured it out, then I loved all my history classes.
That's great. I like how you mentioned environmental history and a combination of those two subjects specific to your job. There might be students out there that don't realize that there's classes like that where they're going to take two different, portions and kind of blend them together in that class. Going back to your job, and I know that you mentioned it's a generalist type of position. You do so much. Does it change often? And are you updating your skills and knowledge in what you do throughout the year, as you're working? Do you have to update that knowledge pretty frequently?
Yeah, actually, because we're county boards, we transfer to new park facilities every few years. So I was at Irvine Regional Park for 3 years, and then I was at Miles Square Regional Park for 3 years, and then I've been here for about a year and a half. And every time we transfer to a new facility, because they're so different, it's like starting a whole new job. So it's a great opportunity for me to kind of brush up on skills that I may not have used in a long time. Because we're first responders, we continue to be updated on like first aid, CPR, and things like that. But depending on the facility, I may have to reach back in my brain and try to find something that something that I haven't used in a long time. So coming here to Riley, this is a wilderness facility, and I hadn't worked at a wilderness facility before. And being one of two park rangers here, where we don't normally have we don't have a big staff here. I'm more of a hands-on maintenance type facility here. So I have to do more of a maintenance work that I don't typically do at another facility. So I had to kind of relearn how to do a lot of maintenance that I hadn't been exposed to in the past. So I'm always learning. I feel like I learn something every day that I just didn't know in the past. So I'm always learning. Even after school, I'm always learning.
That's great. No, thanks for sharing that. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Brown. Did you want to jump in with a question somebody had?
One of the questions came in from Oksana, and she asked if Nicole has seen a cheetah before. So to build on that question, I guess, what would be the most interesting creature or animal that you have come across in your job?
All right, so you said cheetah, right? We don't have cheetahs around here in Orange County, but we do have mountain lions, and we do have bobcats, which are a smaller cat. I don't see mountain lions. We don't see mountain lions around here very often, but we know that they're around just based on seeing animal evidence in the park. So when I'm on my patrols, I'm going to look around and I'm going to see, oh, it just rained, and I see that there's a footprint of an animal. So I'll take a look and see what it is. So I don't always see the animals in person, but I'll see things that they've left behind. So I do see bobcats occasionally, not mountain lions, but we have a few trail cameras in our parks, and I check the trail cameras, and I'll see that a lot of animals have been here overnight, and we do see mountain lions and bobcats frequently around here.
That was a perfect question. That was great timing because I was going to ask if your work involves any animals. And also, I like how you mentioned that you might not see them, but you're looking at the evidence they leave behind, to see what animals are in the parks that you work at. So thank you for sharing that. And what I wanted to ask you for our last question, seeing that we have a lot of students, in this Anaheim Elementary School District, are there any tips that you can give us on how to be better observers of nightlife? So the theme for today is nightlife, nocturnal animals. So if I'm at home in my own neighborhood, what are ways that I can observe some animals that might be out at night where I live?
So I would say the best thing you can do is to be really quiet. And I don't always hear, or I don't always see animals, especially here at the park, but I'll hear them a lot more often than I'll actually see them. So I would say just be really quiet. And if you're at your house, just be quiet and have your friends not talk very loud and just listen. And you'll be surprised like how much you can see or how much you can observe just by listening. So I have I feel like my house is always loud because I have kids, but then when everybody goes to sleep, if I'm quiet, I'll hear the coyote, and I'll hear an owl that lives in my neighborhood, and you'll just listen and be quiet, and then once you do hear something, see if you can figure out what it is and identify what that is.
Thank you for sharing that. That's some great tips. I know that we might not see the animals in our neighborhood, but they're there, and sometimes it's either evidence or just listening quietly to what we have around us. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're at work right now, and you're at Riley Park. So is there anything you want to say to the students that are watching now, the families, or maybe, if they're not watching now, this will be recorded so they can watch later, about visiting Orange County parks? Is there anything you want to finish off with?
Yeah, and I thank you so much for having me, and I'm so excited to be able to actually talk to people because I don't get to talk to people very often anymore. But if follow us on social media, if you take a look at Instagram or Facebook, or if your parents or adults have a Facebook or Instagram account, have them follow OC Parks because you'll get updated on things that are happening in the park, even if you can't get to the park right now. And they'll sometimes share some of the pictures that I get on our trail cameras with some of our wildlife at the park. So again, like I don't see everything that's here, but I know that they're here because we get them on camera. But go check out our parks. Go take a look at Irvine Regional Park is my favorite, and my heart will always be at Irvine even if I'm not there. And if you're ever at a park and you see a park ranger drive by, be sure to say hi. Like, we all love to talk to people, and I love to hear your experiences. So please come out to Riley or any of our other Orange County parks and have a good time. And if you have any questions, I mean, reach out to me or anybody at the parks, and we're happy to welcome you in whenever that can happen.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nicole. Again, we really appreciate the time. Hopefully we'll get a chance to see each other soon out on the trails from a safe distance. Thanks for joining us. And I know this was really great for the kids to hear your career and how you got there. So again, thank you very much. Appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you. Bye.
Now we're going to keep moving, and I actually want to introduce my friend that is joining us today from Inside the Outdoors, because as I mentioned, today not only are we speaking to our guest to talk about the career path that she had to become a park ranger, but we're also going to show you some animals. The theme is nightlife. So I have my friend Erin Foster that's joining us today. Erin, do you want to say hello?
Yeah, hi everyone. So my name is Miss Erin, and I'm a traveling scientist from Inside the Outdoors. And I've been seeing a lot of you in your virtual classrooms this year, which has been really great. So it's really fun to visit you here like this today too.
Thanks, Erin. I wanted to try something with all the students that are listening right now and all the families, because the theme is nightlife. I want to play a sound of an animal that comes out at night. And if you think you know what it is, I want you to go ahead and put that in the chat. And Mrs. Brown is taking a look at those answers to see if you're making that guess. So let's go ahead and see if you can hear this sound. Give me a second here. All right. So I wanted to play a sound that you might hear even in your own neighborhood. And I want to know, Mrs. Brown, were there any guesses in the chat on what type of nocturnal animal that might be?
No guess yet in the chat. I'm watching it as it's coming in right now, but there's about a 15-second delay. I see Madeline is guessing a snake. Allison says an owl. Justin says a cricket. So we have a bunch of different types of guesses from all different types of creatures that it could be.
Those are fantastic guesses. I love those guesses. Let's play one more sound to see if you can guess this one. By the way, the first one, I do want to give you the answer if you were listening. So the first one was crickets, which I know around my house at nighttime, that's when I start hearing a lot of crickets. Let's play the next sound to see if you can guess this one. Now that sound right there might be something that you might not have heard, but I know those animals live in Anaheim. They are nocturnal, they come out at night. A hint, they fly. So keep guessing on those animal noises. Start thinking of nocturnal animals. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and go back to Aaron because Aaron has some special guests that we want to learn about. All right, Aaron, go ahead and take it away.
All right. So this is a great horned owl. His name is Tweak. And a lot of people don't know that we have great horned owls living in Orange County, kind of all over. So great horned owls are one of the most common owls in North America. They live all over from Alaska all the way down into Mexico, from the West Coast to the East Coast. They're kind of all over, and a lot of us don't see them, of course, because they're nocturnal. But you're probably really familiar with the sound that they make. So I'm gonna play that for you. We'll see what Tweak does. All right, so that's kind of the sound that I think everyone recognizes as an owl, but not all owls make that sound. This is the owl that really makes that hooting sound, the great horned owl. Now, of course, he doesn't have horns. He has feather tufts that reminded someone of horns, and that's how this owl got their name. So he's a great horned owl because he's big, and he has these feather tufts here that these owls use for expression. So if he was really upset or really curious or super alert about something, he might put those up. Let's see if he looks a little bit silly when I do it for him. And sometimes people think they look like eyebrows or ears. And they do kind of use them for expression in a similar way that we use our eyebrows. Another thing that's really amazing about owls is that they are incredible nocturnal hunters. So they have some really amazing senses to help them hunt at night. And one of the most remarkable things that people notice about owls first are their eyes. They have these really huge eyes to help them take in as much light as they can get at night. And their eyes, compared to our eyes, are a little bit different. They're a little bit of a different shape, and they can't move their eyes. So one of the things that we're seeing Tweak do right now is really look all around. He's really curious about this room. He's never been in here before. But the reason they have such flexible necks to look all around is because they can't move their eyeballs in their head the way we can. So if you tried right now to look up at the ceiling without moving your head, I bet you could do it, or at the floor or side to side. Owls can't do that. So they have these super flexible necks. But their best sense is their sense of hearing. So owls' ears are covered, of course, by their feathers, and they're sort of behind their eyes the way our ears are. Tweak, you want to look over there? No. So his ears are about here, and there's actually a little bit of a space in his feathers there to help that sound get in there better. And his ears are not symmetrical. So they're not sort of equal on his face. One ear is a little bit higher and a little bit farther back than the other ear. And that actually helps him to hear much better than we can, or to help him figure out where his prey is. So, Mrs. Brown, does anyone have any questions about this owl?
Absolutely. There's a lot of comments coming in on the chat about how pretty he is and people wishing that they could pet him. But somebody mentioned that the wings might help an owl fly quietly at night. Is that something that helps? Why would that be important?
Well, at night, just like a predator like this owl really relies on his ears, so do the small rodents that this type of animal likes to eat. And those animals also, we see, have large eyes and big ears to help them see and hear a predator coming. So it's really important for this type of animal to hunt very quietly, so he can sneak up on a prey animal like a mouse or a rat. So this type of animal, a top predator like this, is really important. Okay, we're just gonna hold you in a little tighter. Is really important to keeping the balance in an ecosystem. So it's really important that we have these guys around. And I really hope that all of you learn a little bit more about birds of prey like this owl, hawks, eagles, and falcons to help protect them, to keep balance in the place where we live. So it's really important to have these guys around. But the silent flight, one of the things that I really noticed about these birds is their feathers look really, really soft, because they are. And that actually helps them to fly silently. So in a few minutes, I'll be able to show you a little more up close some great horned owl feathers. But yeah, and actually, I'll give you a good look at a great horned owl foot as well, which is really important for him as a hunter. Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, there's some observations being made about his beak. So typically when we see birds, sometimes we see a beak that stands out a lot more. And one of the students in here asks if his beak is going to continue to grow as he does.
Oh, that's a great question. So Tweak is an adult, so he's as big as he's going to get. And birds like this do have beaks that will kind of grow pretty constantly, but it's not really going to get bigger. The hook part of his beak will get a little bit longer. And as an education bird, one of the things that we really need to watch is to make sure that his beak stays healthy, because he doesn't get a chance to use it quite the same way a wild bird does. So we actually have to make sure it doesn't get too long. But speaking of the beak, it is hooked like this. And that's one of the things that really helps an owl or a hawk or an eagle to be a good carnivore. So they only eat animals, and that hook lets them take pieces off that they can swallow because they don't have teeth for chewing. Most other birds that eat, or all other birds that eat other animals, swallow the animal whole, but birds of prey like this owl are different. They can eat really large animals, bigger than they could swallow, because they can tear pieces off. Was there any other interesting questions?
Yeah, one that stood out is a user right now is noticing that or recalling on information that some birds like to move to climates that are warmer when the temperatures are cold. Like when it's winter here, they might fly south to a more tropical or warm climate. Is that something that owls do?
This owl does not really do that. They might do what we call migrate locally, which is kind of a move within a local region to different areas, and they might be following some prey animals. But birds that are really well known for migrating like that are waterfowl, like ducks and geese. And if any of you get a chance to get outside and go to a place where there's a pond, you might be able to see some migratory waterfowl that we don't normally see here in the summer. So we're really all familiar with mallards with the green heads. Those aren't migratory, but there are other kinds of ducks that we can see in this area now because they're migrating. But this owl is not one of them. Okay.
Question about him before Screech goes away. So animals go through a lot of changes, or they have adaptations that help them survive. What is the most unique thing or the most important feature about Screech that helps him or that he relies on most for survival?
I would say that for these birds, what do you rely on the most? I'm going to say that, for survival, they rely on their flight the most, the ability to fly and land. So they're really dependent on that flight, or otherwise they can't hunt for themselves. So yeah, I'm going to say their flight's probably the most important for survival in the wild. All right. Well, Mr. Y, is there anything else that you think we should mention?
Erin, I think you covered it. That is fantastic. Thank you so much for showing us Tweak. And as you put them away, I'm going to go ahead and play that call once again. And then maybe you can grab those. You said you had a wing that you might want to show with the feathers. So for everyone that's watching, I want you to go ahead and hear this call one more time. Because something that people might not realize, we have owls in Orange County. They might think, oh, I'm not anywhere near owls. I live, nowhere near maybe mountains. But they can also be found in the city as well. So here, you might listen for something like this. So I'm not sure if you got that sound, but it's definitely a hooting sound. And that's one of, as Erin mentioned, that's one of the most common sounds with owls that people associate with owls. So even when you are in Anaheim, in the city of Anaheim, if you're out at night, make sure you're listening, because a lot of times you might not see these animals, okay? Specifically the owls, because of that silent flight, those adaptations. So you might be able to just hear them. So those calls are really important. Erin, you want to go ahead and show some of the other characteristics you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, so this is an owl wing. So one of the things as scientists that's really important is to be able to study animals up close without hurting them. So this is from an owl that died of natural causes. So I just want to make sure we all understand that we don't kill birds for their parts. But it allows us to really study those feathers and kind of the way the wing is shaped. So let me see if I can get really nice up and close here. We'll see if that works better this way. So you can see the fringed edge of this wing. It almost looks like eyelashes. And you might be able to tell how very soft the feathers are. I know it's a little bit hard on our computers, but the owl feathers are almost a little bit fuzzy, and that actually helps to break up the motion of air as it travels across the wing, making it very, very quiet. Especially compared to an animal like a crow. Those birds, when they flap, you can really hear it. It's kind of noisy. those birds are not predators the way owls are, so they're not relying on, sneaking up on their prey. Another thing that owls use to hunt is their feet. So this is a talon, or this is a foot of a great horned owl. You can see those sharp talons. That's what we call the claws. And how big and powerful this foot is. So birds of prey like owls catch their food with their feet, which is different from other kinds of predator birds that catch their food with their beaks. So they really rely on their strong feet as well for perching and for catching their prey. So you can probably tell that's why I was wearing that strong leather glove when I was holding Tweak. The last thing I wanted to show you is I actually have an owl skull here. And you can see that it has structures for keeping the eyeballs in place because they're so big. In fact, if we had eyes like an owl, our eyes would be the size of tennis balls in our head. So you would be able to tell there's no room left for muscles to move those eyeballs around. So they have big spots for their eyes. The beak shape, you can see, is hooked. So this is just the top part of the beak. And then it's kind of hard to see, but right here is where the ear is. So if I turn it a little bit, you can see there's sort of a part right here I'm touching with my finger that sticks out. That helps the owl to actually catch sound a little bit, sort of like our outer ears do. So birds, of course, don't have outer ears the way we do, but owls are really special with these very, very sensitive ears. Okay, so that's all about the great horned owl. But Urib, I have another owl to show everyone that you might not.
Erin, go ahead while you grab our next friend. I'll go ahead and start introducing the next animal. Now, for the first episode of Backyard Missions, you did meet some of our bird friends. But today we're focusing on animals that are nocturnal. So this is all about nightlife, which is the theme. So if you were able to watch the first episode, and if you haven't, I encourage you to go back. What type of animals did we see? What type of birds did we see? Okay, and which one of those was a nocturnal bird? So Erin is bringing out one of our other friends that is a similar species, but it's a different bird. Okay, again, nocturnal. Also found in Orange County. We do like to highlight animals that are found locally where we live. So Erin, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, so this is a Western Screech Owl. This is Gus. And like Urib was saying, if you saw the first episode, you met Archie, who is also a Western Screech Owl. And you might notice that the colors on Gus are a little bit different from Archie. So Gus is a little bit more gray, but still that similar color pattern. And you might also notice that the Western Screech Owl is almost like a mini-me of the great horned owl. So really similar color pattern and shape, similar eyes, even the face looks really similar. And they do also have those ear tufts. Of course, Gus doesn't really want to show them right now. So she's gonna look a little bit silly. But here they are. So again, those are for expression. You might also notice that her feet also have some really sharp talons, even though they are smaller. And I'm wondering if anyone thinks they know why these owls are colored the way they do. Why do they have these colors and patterns in their feathers? What advantage does that give them? So, Mrs. Brown, do we have any responses or questions while we're waiting for answers?
I'm waiting for the delay here to come in about what advantage it might have. And Isabella says that, or she's asking, can owls camouflage in trees? Or what do they hide in to camouflage? So that's a wondering that might be related to this. Whereas Allison is saying camouflage is a reason of the coloring of the owl and why it looks the way that it does.
That's right. So these owls are really, really good at camouflaging with trees. And if we take a close look at these colors again, they remind me a lot. Let's see if I can get in here a little bit better. They remind me a lot of oak tree bark. So one of our native trees, our local trees, are oak trees, which are very common and are a great place for these little owls to hide. So they are strictly nocturnal. We don't really see them in the day at all. And most people don't know that this bird is found throughout Orange County. And one of the reasons is because they're so good at hiding and using that camouflage. But if you're lucky enough to be out in an open space at night, you might be able to hear that call, which I will play for you. And when I was doing this earlier, Gus started making the sound also. So we'll see if she does that again. All right, so this is called a Western Screech Owl, but as you heard, the sound that they make isn't really quite a screech. So hopefully you could tell that some of the sound that you just heard was coming from Gus as well. Mrs. Brown, do we have any other questions about this bird?
So we have some questions that are coming through, and I'm watching the chat because it's nice to see that some of the other users are researching and answering their other subscribers' questions. There's been a lot of questions about owls in general, and you might have said this already, but to reiterate, how much or how many degrees can the owl's head actually rotate around? Because it's the misconception that it can go all the way around his body or her body.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. So a lot of people say that owls can turn their head in a whole circle, and that's not true. And the joke that we like at Inside the Outdoors is that if they did that, their head would fall off. But they can turn their head 270 degrees about, which is 3/4 of the way around. So if Gus wanted to keep looking that way, she could actually turn her head like this. So if I wanted to look over that shoulder, if I was an owl, I could turn my head this way to look that way. They don't tend to do that very often, but I do see them turning their heads completely backwards all the time. And you probably noticed that today with Tweak and now with Gus. There's something over on that side of the room that Gus is very interested in. She's a very curious owl, and you might see her bobbing her head around. That's something that owls do to help them really focus on the thing that they're looking at. So it helps their two eyes to work together a little bit better by kind of moving their head back and forth.
Erin, thank you so much for showing the Western Screech Owl. Oh, go ahead, Mrs. Brown. Was there any more questions?
Sorry, one more question for Erin about the owls. Miss Silver's class is watching together right now, and they're really curious that what other types of nocturnal animals are there out there, or even some nocturnal animals that might be local to our area in Southern California?
Oh, that's a really good question. I actually have one more animal to show you. So Yuri, maybe while I go put Gus down and grab Cannoli, our next friend, you can talk about some of our local nocturnal animals.
Absolutely. That's a great segue. So thank you to the students in that class for pointing that out. Owls, that's something that you think of when we talk about nocturnal animals. One of the sounds that I played for you earlier that I mentioned it's something that flies, bats. Think about bats. Bats are also found in the city of Anaheim. They come out at night, they eat insects, so very useful for us. But sometimes people might not think of other mammals that are nocturnal. Now, our park ranger guest mentioned that there's mountain lions and bobcats in Orange County, and typically cats like to come out at night. You also might think of animals like skunks. Skunks are nocturnal. They like to come out at night. Also, raccoons. Raccoons are also animals that like to come out at night. So that's something you should definitely research, because there's a long list of animals in Orange County that like to come out when we go to bed. So Erin, go ahead and take it away with our last animal. We have a little bit of time left.
Yeah, my pleasure. Before I bring him out, also, when I was living in Anaheim, I saw possums at night too. So that's another nocturnal animal. But right now I have an animal you probably won't see in Anaheim at night, and that's this guy. This is a western toad. And western toads are found in our open spaces in Orange County. He's really wiggly. His name's Cannoli. You can see his nice camouflage colors, and this white stripe on his back is one of the things that really tells us that this is a western toad and not another kind of toad. So toads are amphibians. Here, when it's so hot during the day for a lot of the year, it's really an advantage to be nocturnal as an amphibian, because their thin skin really needs to stay moist for their survival. So coming out at night is a good way to protect their skin. They're also cold-blooded, so they rely on their environment for their body temperature, which is different from us. Our bodies maintain our own heat, so we're always the same temperature when we're healthy. So it is possible that we might see these guys during the day in the wintertime. They do tend to come out when it rains, but for a lot of the year, especially summer, they stay buried in their burrows underground. They sort of hibernate over the summer. So this is our western toad. He's pretty cool. All right. So Mrs. Brown, do we have any questions about the toad or any other nocturnal creatures?
Yeah, are there other nocturnal animals or animals that you know that burrow, like you were just saying? Because that's a unique feature.
Yeah, that is. Gosh, now I'm trying to think of some nocturnal animals in our area that I know that burrow, and I'm drawing a little bit of a blank. Yuri, can you think of any?
Well, I can think from my own personal experience, maybe not burrows in the same sense as a western toad, but I know that skunks like to go underground, and that's typically where they like to live with the babies that they have, their family. So that's a big reason why we might not see them. Raccoons, on the other hand, they'll find any place to hide. But if you think about skunks, and yes, there are skunks in your city, you just don't see them, but they're there. Typically, they like to go underground for their homes.
That was a great question.
There's some comments in the chat here about this is the type of toad or frog that maybe a student can catch at Laguna Lake or something like that. Is that where you would find a toad like this?
That's a great question. You might. I know for sure that they're found in places like Irvine Regional Park that our guest Nicole was talking about working at earlier. But I would say probably any space where there's a little bit of nature and some water is a place where you might find these guys. But again, they do tend to hide underground for most of the year. I know that another amphibian that we have around here is the California tree. They keep changing the name of this animal. Sometimes it's called the Baja tree frog or the California chorus frog, but they really make a nice ribbit sound, which is different, of course, from this toad. A lot of frogs croak also, but the Baja tree frog, which we do here at night, especially after some rain, in a spot where there's some water, they're only about this big. They're really small and they're super cute, but they're also really hard to find because they're so small. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put Cannoli down so he doesn't dry out too much. But I'm really glad I got a chance to introduce you to our Western toad.
Thank you so much, Erin. We appreciate you showing our animal friends. Mrs. Brown, if there are any last questions before we sign off from any of the students or classes or families that are watching.
Sure. The one that keeps popping up, or that was popping up earlier, that got my attention is, how do you decide what to name these creatures and guests that you have with you today, Erin?
That's a great question. The two birds that I introduced to you all today are actually birds that live at the Orange County Bird of Prey Center. So the Orange County Bird of Prey Center is one of the organizations that Inside the Outdoors partners with, and we really appreciate the opportunity to bring those birds to students and others to help them learn about birds of prey. So we didn't name those birds. I do know that Tweak got his name because he used to tweak his head over. So one of the reasons Tweak is no longer a wild owl is that he fell on his head and he actually sustained a brain injury. And because of that brain injury, when he was much younger, he used to sort of tweak his head over a lot. And he doesn't do that anymore, but that's how he got his name. And then Gus, I'm not sure who named Gus. Gus has actually been teaching students in classrooms for a little bit longer than I have. But the interesting thing about Gus is that because of her size, they assumed, because she's small, they assumed that she was male. But then one spring she laid an egg and we discovered that Gus was actually female. But her name is Gus and it's a good name that fits her. And then Cannoli, I'm not sure who named Cannoli, but I have a feeling it was the children of one of our Inside the Outdoors employees. So those are some of the ways that these animals have gotten their names.
Perfect. Thank you, Erin. We really appreciate you showing the animal friends. Mrs. Brown, thank you so much for sharing the questions from all the students, families, classes that are watching right now. We appreciate you joining us again for the third installment of the Backyard Missions. Again, these were created for you to get outdoors and observe the local phenomena, all the cool stuff that you might have in your own neighborhood. Remember, sometimes you might not see it. So definitely hear, listen for things around you, because that's another great way to make those observations. So with that, thank you, and we will see you next month for the next episode of Backyard Missions. Thank you, everyone.